In today's video, I'll go over my thoughts about the third quarter earnings for HYLN, and this is from reading the 10Q report, and some of it requires some math. But they offer two time periods, one from the beginning of the year to the end of September, and a second timeline from the beginning of July through the end of September. So first we'll take a look at the longer time view, and according to the 10Q, all they did was sold hybrid EX trucks, and they made a total of $416,000 with two customers, customer A and customer G. They don't disclose who they are, but one customer bought more trucks or retrofitted trucks more than the other, and the other 10% is for internet connectivity and data processing on these vehicles. And the cost to make all of this set them back $1,675,000. So as a result, and requires a little bit of math, they lost $1.25 million, and that's the equivalent of I have to spend $100 to make about $25. When I take that timeline and I narrow it, for just hybrid sales and other stuff, they made $96,000, and they lost one customer, and almost $6,000 is generated from internet connectivity and data processing. To do all of this, it set them back $672,000. That also resulted in a loss of $576,000. And that's the equivalent of spending $100 to make $14.30. So when they go to the board and they show them that it cost us $100 to make about $14.30, and they ask for more money to continue ERX development, what do you think they're going to say? No, we're not doing that. When they go to the customer, the OEMs, and they have to show strong customer demand, and they show them that we went from two customers to one customer, and they want to transition making powertrains over to them, what do you think the OEMs are going to say? No, we're not going to do that. And so that's where the board came up with this plan. According to the 10Q, they decided through a strategic review to wind down the ERX powertrain business. And this is where the story changes. And they're planning, which has already started to happen, a workforce reduction, which is called a reduction in force of approximately 175 people. And this is going to cost them $1.4 million in severance, $900,000 in stock-based compensation, and $13.9 million in terminating contracts. And also there's another $2 million thrown in there for good measure, which I did not listen to this, but they're going to take a few people from the powertrain business and shift them over to the linear heat generation side of the business, and they're going to focus on commercializing generators. Now, according to a LinkedIn post, there was a project manager on there, and she posted, and this is a quote from that post: "On this very day last year, November 9th, I was laid off by Meta, And now a year later, I find myself in the same situation with HYLN. I had been a top performer and was well on my way to securing a promotion. I could have never foreseen this outcome for me and my incredibly talented teammates. So when you're working a job, you're focused on doing the work. You're not focused on the stock price. You're leaving it up to the higher level people to do that and make sure everything's fine. And all of a sudden there's an abrupt choice is once you finish the project, it's now done. It's now over. It's finished. And they did not see it coming. If I were to work there, which I don't, never worked there, I wouldn't have seen it coming either, because I'm just focused on doing my job, doing the work. And unfortunately, they had to let people go. And it was on the same day that they did the third quarter call. And I'm pretty sure that puts a target on the CEO's back, because now you have 175 people who do not like him. I mean, some people, are cool with it. Well, no, they're not cool with it. Yeah, he's living in a place with enemies now. Oh man, that's not a good situation to be in. And so they probably have ramped up security at the place just in case you have to worry about one or two people who really took it the wrong way. Because think you basically spent a year plus putting in blood, sweat, and tears into a product, and all of a sudden you lost your job. You didn't do anything wrong, which is true, but companies don't care about people. They care about profit, which is unfortunate, but it's true. On the 10Q, they reported assets of 30 Hypertruck ERX production trucks. So it looks like they did assemble them, but they're not going to sell them. And they have one fuel cell prototype truck that they built with HYLN. And I think the reasoning for that is because if they sold them, they would also need to support them. There's a warranty period that typically extends for the lesser of 2 years or 200,000 miles. And that's still true with the hybrid EX trucks. So they're going to have to keep enough people on board to support the hybrid EX trucks until it goes out of warranty. For cash and investments, they in cash, they have 28.6 million. In short-term investments, they have 153.6 million. Long-term investments are $141.3 million. And they also try to say, oh, we have inventory we can sell, and they try to include that as cash. Both short-term and long-term include U.S. Treasury bonds, municipal bonds, as well as corporate bonds. And corporate bonds are a little bit higher risk than the previous two. So before the plan was executed, and keep in mind that the plan is a sequence of steps. It's like checking off little boxes. You do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. You have the board. Thomas reports to the board. Thomas has his ERX place in Cedar Park, Texas. Last year, Sherry appears. This Carno facility appears in Cleveland, Ohio. And Sherry, at the Investor Day conference, she's there giving her spiel about the Carno, how great, how wonderful it is. Then on what the truck, Thomas is visiting the facility to say, oh yeah, we spent a couple days printing a part and we're testing out in the genset. So he also has his hands on it. And after the plan is announced and they start running on it, it's going to turn into this picture. where you have the EX and ERX and on ice in cryostasis. It's now just in a dream kind of like state over here. Thomas reports to the board, Sherry reports to Thomas, and both of them have their hands on the Carno pot. And during the investor Q3 call, Thomas basically gives the same spiel about the Carno generator that Sherry did during Investor Day. So they're kind of both doing the same thing, and we know that Thomas has an affinity for trucks. So there's still going to be this gravitation around trucks, and I'm sure if he had his own way, he would bring this EX-ERX piece back into the fold, but due to the environment, he can't do that because the board told him no. So from a Carno standpoint, you have 6 different ways they can go about preaching this to the choir, and this is mentioned in their 10Q. Waste gas power generation, which there's a natural gas component in there, and a certain OEM has natural gas generators. We have flare gas, vehicle charging, which I'm sure that Thomas really wants to do, and the board really wants to do because it involves in trucks, but they can't do it because the environment's weak right now. Prime power, peak shaving, and backup power. And during the Q&A portion of the Q3 call, they said, "Oh no, our main focus is not backup power. We want to provide real power in lieu of like power companies." So I guess in their dreamlike state, since vehicle charging requires a lot of power, they want to go for the vehicle charging segment, but they can't because the environment's not good right now. So it comes to Sherry to not develop a plan, because plans are checking off little boxes. Like we're going to develop the Carno, we're going to do this, this, and that. We're going to start off with a small generator and scale up to a big one. She has to figure out, okay, since we want to get to here eventually, and that's not primed yet, what do we do now? And keep in mind, strategies are a series of choices or decisions based on various inputs that are constantly changing over time. And there's a whole science involved with that. At somewhere towards the end of the 10K, they talk about the Alpha Carno. And it's the same kind of thing where with the ERX and the development, they debut the Alpha 1 for the ERX. This is the first truck we did. They mentioned the Alpha Carno, which is 125 kilowatts. And on the press release, they don't mention the Alpha Carno. They just say that this generator, they've proved that they can feed the power back into the grid. But they have plans on building a 200 kilowatt generator and a 2000 kilowatt generator or a 2 megawatt generator and scale up from there. So it looks like they want to execute on a plan, but then also you have strategy in there as well, because they're going up against Nikola, because Nikola, the CEO, said energy is the greatest opportunity. Nikola is building the hydrogen highway, and it almost looks like HYLN is trying to reposition themselves in light of this. So the story has changed. Instead of the ERX, they're now going for the generator segment. And this may take a year to do. I'm sure it's going to be delayed by another year, because they need to tie this into the 2027 mandates for greenhouse emissions in trucks and try to get the timing right. And as a risk in there during the call, they also mentioned that the government could change its mind on how much of these trucking mandates they want to enforce, which is true, because I've worked in the health insurance industry before, and the government comes in and says, well, everyone has to have health insurance through the ACA, Affordable Care Act. And then a couple years later, they change their mind and say, oh, that's optional. That's it for this video. And of course, thanks for watching.